This was unbelievable. Charlie Kirk went up against a student saying that Israel is playing the victim. This is right after October 7th, and he gives him a reality check.
Given the current situation, the attacks on October 7th, I feel like the nation of Israel might have been has been doing that in sense of referring to the attacks as Israel's 9/11 while simultaneously funding Hamas. If this is Israel's 9/11, which we used our own 9/11 to fund decades of war to fill the pockets of military contractors, how do we look at what's going on right now and avoid making the same mistake?
Yeah, I get that question. So I want to make sure I'm very morally clear here. Sometimes you are a victim, right? If you get shot on the streets of LA, you are a victim. The problem is we have a supply and demand problem with victimology in the West. We have a bunch of people that are incredibly blessed walking around acting like victims because somebody said something that offended them, okay? So of course, sometimes you are a victim. When you wake up on your holiest day and 1,500 of your fellow Jews are slaughtered, yeah, that you are the victim of terrorism. I'll just be very honest. And that's the equivalent of 50,000 Americans. So, and I will also say, though, that to Israel's credit, they're taking matters into their own hands. And while they are trying to, of course, encourage and increase sympathy for their cause, it's now Hamas that's playing the victim. It's now Hamas that says, oh, stop bombing us, stop doing all this. And I'll be honest, it falls on deaf ears for me. It's like, wait a second, did you not launch an unprompted attack into civilian corridors, into homes and schools and nurseries on a holy day? So, you know, spare me your caterwauling. You guys were the ones that launched this war, and war is nasty, war is awful, and they're saying they'll do it again. The Hamas leader comes out and he says, just a matter of time till every single day is October 7th. To your point, which I really resonate with, is that I'm not a neoconservative. I do not believe our foreign policy should be an instrument to remake foreign countries in a quote-unquote Western image. I think that the Iraq and the Afghanistan war teaches us that. And I think we need to be, that's why in my remarks, I emphasize the border, what's happening in our own country. We need to balance what's happening in Israel, which is obviously important, but also understand that we have some serious problems here in this country. And I do not like when leaders focus more time, energy, and attention on foreign conflicts than our own.
So what the student's trying to say here is maybe Israel should just do nothing. They shouldn't respond. They shouldn't do the exact same thing and make the same mistakes that we made by 9/11. Well, you know, the difference is America is on the other side of the world. They don't really have to engage with the Middle East, and them going into Iraq and Afghanistan and all these other countries is not necessary. It's not necessarily a good idea because it's all the way halfway across the world in a region they don't understand. But with Israel and it being literally right next to Hamas in Gaza, there is a real threat and a real danger that A, it could happen again, but also B, they're still shooting rockets and they're still going to, you know, basically say, look at the Jews, look how weak they are. They're going to go to other Arab nations and say, listen, we did this to the Jews and they didn't even respond. So the idea that Israel could have just laid down and taken it is very thick. It's very ignorant to say something like that. And, you know, telling students, listen, comparing everything to America is not the way to go because there's a major difference between having an ocean and being on the other side of the world versus actually being in the thick of it and dealing with these threats day in and day out. For more, subscribe to the channel. If you want to help us make more of these videos, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. Also go to our memberships page and subscribe there as well. Thank you for watching and have a good one.